Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for coming to this very important meeting of the City Council as we do the people's work. At this time, council members, if you would please stand for the invocation which will be given by Pastor Robert Lee from Fairwood Agape Baptist Church. And then if the rest of the members of the audience would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We were to be led by Boy Scout Troop 404. I understand they're stuck in a little traffic, so once we get going with the program and the meeting, if they come in, we'll recognize the Boy Scout troops, and they'll learn a good lesson about transportation, Pastor, and it's always good to teach them young, right?
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Father, we ask you to bless us today with your presence as we attempt to do business for this city, Lord, this family of Portsmouth. We ask for wisdom. We ask for strength. We ask for your will to be done and all that's said and done in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just put it on back.
Members of City Council, if you will indicate your presence electronically, please.
Six members of City Council are present.
All right, thank you. Members of City Council, well, let me just mention to the audience, Dr. Edmonds isn't here. I believe he's in Richmond at VCU with his grandson. He's being inducted into the National Honor Society. Is that what it is? So I think he get an excuse to be able to miss a meeting to be there for that grandson. So, and we wish him safe travels on his way back. Members of City Council, you have before your consideration the minutes of a call meeting of November the 24th, 2014, call meeting November 25th, 2014, and a regular meeting of November the 25th, 2014. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Move adoption.
Okay.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Very good.
The minutes are adopted 6-0.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. 14-465 presentations. We have one additional item this evening. At this time, we'd like to call on Mr. John Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's my great pleasure to call to the lectern Fire Chief Beck Barfield and a very special honoree, Amy Ward. And as she comes, I'm going to give a little preview. Last month, Amy was selected to be the paramedic of the year for the complete state of Virginia. Isn't that awesome? I'd like for Beck to tell you about this outstanding person.
Thank you. Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of council, good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to recognize an employee of the Portsmouth Fire Rescue and Emergency Services who has done an outstanding job representing her department, the fire department, the city, the region, and the state. And her name is Amy Ward. Amy has been employed with the Portsmouth Fire Department for over 20 years. She holds a paramedic certification from TCC, an associate's degree in applied science and nursing from J. Sargent Reynolds Community College, as well as a BA in history and a BS in biology from Old Dominion University, and is a licensed registered nurse, certified hypobaric technologist. Did I get that right? Okay.
Good job, Chief.
While employed with the department, she has received the following awards and commendations: Paramedic of the Year for the Fire Department for 3 years, Paramedic of the Year recognized by the American Legion Post 190 for 2 years, Paramedic of the Year recognized by the Rotary Club of Portsmouth for 2 years. She was Employee of the Month for October of this year, 2014. In August, she received the largest, one of the largest awards, which was the 2014 Tidewater EMS Council Regional Award for Outstanding Pre-Hospital Provider. And if that wasn't enough, she went in November, and most recently, she received the 2014 Governor's EMS Award for Outstanding Emergency Medical Services Pre-Hospital Provider. Gives me great pleasure to introduce and to present Amy Ward.
Amy. Come on, Amy, you got to say something. Come on. Tell us all about that stuff. What was that biomedical, what, Chief?
I don't know.
You don't know, right? Tell us about it, Amy.
As a certified hyperbaric technologist, I work for Hyperbaric Medicine Services in Centera doing the dive chambers.
Okay, very good, very good.
Do that part-time, just a little extra stuff.
Absolutely.
This is what our first responders do. Not only do they study hard, but they come the best in the whole state.
That's right.
And I am so proud of our leadership. I'm proud of Amy. Congratulations.
And great
Thank you
job.
again.
Absolutely.
At this time, we will have a very special presentation to Councilwoman Marlene W. Randall for faithful City Council service. Councilwoman Randall, if you would please join the mayor at the Sergeant-at-Arms desk. And she's being escorted by our very capable Vice Mayor Cherry.
Absolutely. Not that she needs any help at all. Come on
None
over here.
whatsoever.
This is indeed an honor and a pleasure. And before we start this, we're going to ask, I call him Rocky.
There you go, my
He's
honey.
known as Mr. PhD to everybody else, and you refer to him as your honey. So
My honey.
we're Mr. PhD, Mr. Rocky, and Mr. Honey, would you please join us up here? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Come on up, sir. Let's give him a hand as he will take. I'm messing with you because we're posed to. That's right. After 14 years of public service on this city council, Ms. Randall, it is indeed an honor and pleasure to recognize your service and what you have meant and what you as a couple have meant to the city of Portsmouth and all of the contributions to our young people in education and just leadership in general. And there's just so much here that you have done over these 14 years of service. And I'm going to read every bit of it because we need our viewing audience at home and here to hear about all of these great things. But I want to first, and don't know if you are aware of this, but the the Virginia First Cities has an award here that they wanted to present because they wanted to recognize all of your service that you've Virginia First Cities is an extremely important body. And there are a lot of things that go on in these historic cities that a lot of other newer cities and counties don't encounter. And we being part of the Virginia First Cities and one of the leaders in that, they take extreme pride in their liaison and representation from the city of Portsmouth. And Ms. Randall has been a part of that since, according to this plaque here, it says, Virginia First Cities, in recognition of your service, the Honorable Marlene Randall, Virginia First Cities board member from 2006 to 2014. And she was also, let's get this right, she was also the chairperson from 2009 to 2010. And they presented this here in November the 14th of 2014. And they really wanted to make sure we recognize you publicly and thank you for all of the work you've done with Virginia First Cities and your just your kindness and your leadership that you brought to that board. And they wanted me to personally recognize you. And this has nothing to do with this gold watch and this $20,000 check we're going to give you. But we wanted to do this because Virginia First Cities is a valuable component in this Commonwealth, and your leadership has been recognized by that entire board, and they wanted me to do this. So congratulations to that. And now, if you would bear with me as I read all of the things that this phenomenal woman has done since her election to Portsmouth City Council in the year 2000. She was former vice mayor. She served on the Personnel Committee, the Portsmouth Norfolk Empowerment 2010 vice chair, Virginia Municipal League Human Development and Education Steering Committee member, the National League of Cities, which we just mentioned, the Youth Education and Families, 2008 Finance, Administration, and Intergovernment Relations Steering Committee, the Commonwealth of Virginia Justice Services Board, and that was an appointment by Governor Tim Kaine, Virginia First Cities Executive Committee, she served as the chair and the vice chair, Women in Municipal Government member, the National League of Cities member obtaining, and please listen to this because rarely do elected officials obtain all of these levels. And I think the last one we had in Portsmouth to obtain that might have been Mr. Whitehurst. The National League of Cities obtaining the city's bronze level leadership fellow, the silver level leadership executive, the gold level leadership ambassador, the platinum level leadership statesman, and finally the diamond level. That, ma'am, deserves a round of applause for all of what you've done with the National League. She also served the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials. She was chairman of the Mayor's Ball, the Hampton Roads Regional Jail. She was the council's liaison. The Municipal Finance Committee, she served as our liaison. The Southampton Roads Resource Conservation and Development Council, the Tidewater Community College liaison, the Brighton, Prentice Park, Truxton, and Charlestown City Council liaison, the Portsmouth School Board City Council liaison, and finally, but definitely not least, one that's very near and dear to your heart, the Umoja Steering Committee Volunteer Coordinator. Ms. Randall, it is indeed an honor and pleasure for me as the mayor and on behalf of the City Council to thank you for all of your contributions to our city, for a person that has been independent in her thinking, and she has not been afraid to share her comments and thoughts when there was a threat posed to our children, to our educational system, and to the general public at large. I have never seen this woman come out of her seat in my 4 years here until you start talking about something that jeopardizes our future. And a person that understands that generational responsibility and what it means to give back and make sure that all of our kids have a chance at this American dream. We want to thank you on behalf of the entire City Council and the City of Portsmouth. And Doc, you got to hold her because we want her to talk. And I need my hands free because I'm going to take the mic. I know she can talk, so that's why my hands need to be free so I can take the mic from her. But Ms. Randall, please give her a round of applause. This is This is the beautiful gold watch that we give to our council members for serving on this council and representing this city. And you certainly deserve this. And I hope you wear it with pride and proudness as you go throughout our city. She's a member of every organization in the city, so you'll have ample time to wear this watch and talk all about your city council colleagues, how great the mayor is, and all of those great things. So with that, please share us a few words, Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say to God be the glory for this moment in time, and for me to say to my Portsmouth family, I dearly love you. I am a person who traveled across when the tunnel was not there and rode the ferry to come all this way to Portsmouth from Norfolk when I started my career. And at that time, that was quite a trip and journey to ride the ferry to come over to Portsmouth. And that was my first introduction to the city. But to God be the glory. You really became my heart. I love the city. This is my home. I've loved the people that's been here. And I wish my arms were just wide enough to reach out and re-hug all of the children that came through schools to help to make me grow and develop, because it was because of the love of the families and the children and the things that we had to go through that helped to develop me into the person that I am now. I keep telling my husband I'm not getting older, I'm getting younger. You notice I'm getting closer to him. And I just thank God that he's been there to be my backbone, to help me to do the things that we've been able to do for the family. And I say to each and every one of you, you are special. Don't let anyone destroy the uniqueness that we have in Portsmouth. So I want each one of you to reach out and touch someone near you. Just touch someone near you. Because if you can reach out and touch someone, you can spread your joy to someone else. And I see one of my buddies from the manor put his fist out. And I'm not calling any names, but my eyes are all around the front and back of my head. I learned that by being a teacher. And I say to each and every one of you, God bless you, and just keep me in your prayers and the Portsmouth family in your prayers, and we can achieve great things together. Most of all, thank you, dog, for bearing with me.
Now, before you take your seat, I'm going to ask one of our longest-serving members of the City Council, Mr. Bill Moody, to respond and comment. Mr. Moody? And he is going to be on a time limit, too. Right? He, like you, can go on and on and on. I did this at Mayor Holly's funeral, and I thought I had to take the mic, but Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Marlene, I know you're emotional, and I'm not too good at these things either, and saying goodbye, but we're not saying goodbye to this lady. I'm sure we'll see her involved in making the city better, speaking up for children, speaking up for schools, and giving us that always loving, hey, baby. You know, I really didn't. I served on the Red Cross board with Marlene long before both of us were on council. So when she says she loves our city, I know she speaks from her heart, and she's sincere about that. And the mayor is right. If she ever thought one iota that you were leaving kids out or leaving schools out of a conversation, she would quickly remind us all that what about the kids? What about our schools? And We would only expect that from someone who was an educator, a principal, and whenever I attended an event with Marlene, I used to marvel at, I said, this lady knows everybody in this city. and most people know her. And like all of my colleagues, and I know I speak for all of them, we know her, we've served with her, we loved her, and we expect to still see you around this great city, Marlene. And it's been an honor for me to serve with you.
Thank you.
You take care. Great job, Bruce.
Thank y'all very much. Thank you. My friend.
All right, thank you.
Now, we still have business to do, so as they say, straighten up and fly right, Ms. Randall. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments. Public hearing. 14-466. Public hearing on the proposed adoption by the City Council of a resolution to request the General Assembly to amend the present city charter. The proposed amendments to the charter will amend City Charter Section 3.03C and repeal City Charter Section 3.03D. The proposed changes will remove 1, the requirement that a sitting council member tender his or her resignation as a council member in order to run for the office of mayor, and 2, the procedure for filing a vacancy created by such a resignation. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this specific public hearing but did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on public hearing item 14-466.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I'm Mark Gadulda-Gutrovsky, P.O. Box 50141, Portsmouth. This item was an item sent to the General Assembly in 2010 for the first time in recent history. And it's an item that has never come before the citizens of this city for a referendum. Therefore, I'm asking that this item be submitted as a referendum item to the people of Portsmouth. My own opinion is that the best interests of the citizenry are not served by making this change. There are several members of council who might potentially derive a benefit from this, in that if the change occurred, they could run for mayor without sacrificing the last 2 years of their term on council. I don't know where that serves the public interest. We have seen from the evidence of history, in 2010, when the mayoral vacancy occurred because of the recall of Mayor James W. Hawley III, that a number of members of council who wanted to run were deterred from running because of the resign to run provision. Essentially, as far as I could see, it was no loss to the field of candidates that they did not run. The one member who did have the courage to step down and run with all her heart, Ms. Simas, was undercut by her colleagues who did not have the courage to do similarly. And I feel that if this were to happen, if this change were to happen, you would most likely see similar situations in the future. The city charter allows you to hold either a public hearing or a referendum. I believe that we should get the opinion of the public on this rather than the opinion of self-interested members of council who put this forward at one of the last possible moments in the formulation of the General Assembly proposals. The process started last summer, and not a word was spoken by members of council until the 10th of November, when they slipped it in. It's interesting, in the resolution that the city attorney provided me today, most resolutions have a page or more of whereases explaining the rationale for doing a particular, for making a particular change or advocating a particular position. This resolution just says, be it resolved, with no justification. No justification was provided in the meeting at which this item was proposed. So I would say that the justification probably is a rather selfish one that nobody wanted to give voice to in any sort of public setting. At any rate, my recommendation to you is when you take this up later in the agenda, that you submit this to the public as a referendum item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Members of council, seeing no additional speakers on this item, this public hearing is closed. 14-467, public hearing on a street name change application. SNC 1402, Prentice Place. Ordinance granting the request of Karen Fisher Davis to change the name of Brighton Street between Effingham Street and Chestnut Street to John T. Fisher Way. This name change is requested in honor of John T. Fisher, Jr. for his years of service to the community and to celebrate the 130th anniversary of Fisher Funeral Home. Vision Principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, my name is John Hartley, Planning Administrator with the City Planning Department. And here we go. There we go. Got to turn it on first. This This is a request of Karen Fisher Davis, who now owns and operates Fisher Funeral Home, which will be celebrating next year its 130 years of service to the community. She is requesting to change the name of the street that runs essentially beside the funeral home from Brighton Street to John T. Fisher Way. And it's the segment that is circled in the photo, the segment between Effingham and Chestnut. This is one of two disconnected segments of Brighton Street that exist in the city. The other is actually behind the fire station, so it's not really connected to the section that's proposed for the name change today. And it's identified by the circled portion of the aerial photo. Fisher Funeral Home actually faces Effingham Street, and there's 7 parcels that would be affected in terms of addressing by this request for a name change. The parcels that are highlighted in yellow are actually owned by the Fisher family. And 3 of those face what is now Brighton Street. The others, including the funeral home, face either Effingham or Chestnut. Just to get a sense of the area, these are photos. On the left is a photo of the funeral home from Effingham Street. On the right is the rear of the funeral home, actually on Brighton Street. And then you have some residences that are also on this street that would be affected by the name change. The Planning Commission at their meeting on November 4th recommended denial of this request by a vote of 3-2. At this point, I'll try to answer any questions you may have about this request, and I'm sure Ms. Davis is here to answer any questions that you may have.
John, let me ask you, how many residents are being affected? Do you know right off?
There are 3 structures. One of them contains a number of apartments, and I'm not sure what that number is.
Ms. Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question for Mr. Hartley. I have a question for the audience, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I was contacted by Ms. Fisher. I also had a conversation with the family of Foster Funeral Home supporting this change. And I was curious, if there are those in the audience that support this change, would you please stand? And are there those in the audience who do not approve of this change? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Cherry?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just wanted to speak in support of this item. You know, I had the good fortune of joining Zion Baptist Church, where Mr. Fisher was a dedicated member. So I got to see up close some of the great things he did for the community that a lot of people never knew about. And I'm reminded of, and also I found out that this 130 years would be the longest running, if I say this wrong, Karen, somebody wave at me, but I believe it will be the longest continuous running African-American owned business in the United States of America. One of the longest running in the United States of America. So, and I'm reminded of something that Mayor Holly said at Mr. Fisher's funeral. He talked about all the great things on what a great community person he was at his funeral, and he said that in all the years he knew him and the great things he did for him and for Portsmouth, he never asked for anything in return. So this is our opportunity to return something to a great man and a great family that's been a lot to this city, and I want to express my full support for this item.
All right, thank you. Very well done. Anybody else? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item SNC 1402. And at this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak but did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on item SNC 1402. Members of City Council, this public hearing is closed.
Move adoption.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay, very good.
This item is adopted 6-0. Members of City Council, you have received a letter of requesting withdrawal for item 14441, B, C, and D. We are in need of a motion and a second to accept that withdrawal.
So moved.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second to accept the withdrawal, and you'll be voting electronically. The withdrawal has been accepted by a vote of 6-0. Unfinished business, 14-441, use permit. Item A, resolution granting the request of Lorraine Tucker for a use permit to construct a 7-Eleven convenience store with gas sales on the northeast corner of Effingham Street and Lincoln Street, also referenced as 1811 Effingham Street. UP 1415, first reading vote 7-0 approved. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call, and I have Mr. Ray King available if you have questions. If not, we're in need of a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. Other unfinished business, 14-407, Code Amendment. Ordinance granting the proposed amendments to the City of Portsmouth zoning ordinance to address a number of minor technical changes to include, but are not limited to, allowing heavy industrial uses with a use permit where certain heavy industrial uses were prohibited, creating a staff committee to make recommendations on proposed buildings and site designs to the zoning administrator, creating alternative options for new commercial developments to provide windows on corner lots, allowing microbreweries as now required by the Code of Virginia, creating a temporary use permit for outdoor gatherings, prohibiting the storage of construction equipment on residential lots, and to allow by right massage therapy, tattoo parlors, and family daycare homes with certain requirements. CA 1401, first reading vote, 6-1 approved. Vision principle, efficient responsive government, electronic roll call, and I have a few speakers. Our first speaker is Mrs. Glenna Cornett.
My name is Glenda Cornett, and I live on Thelmar Lane, Portsmouth. Mayor, council members, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Wilson, and Ms. White. We wrote a letter to you all today concerning the Code Amendment 14407. I sincerely believe that the item about construction and landscaping equipment is not clear enough in the definition of them. Most are interchangeable in use. For instance, a bobcat can be used in the construction business and it can be used in landscaping. It can move dirt, gravel, limbs, with a simple change of the attachment on the front. A tractor is the same way, whether small or large. By changing an attachment, it can be used as a backhoe. Therefore, the definition of construction equipment can be in the eyes of the beholder. What piece of equipment do you call landscape, and what do you call construction equipment? This is a very large gray area that Mr. Bob Baldwin should not be able to make a decision on his own about what a piece of construction equipment is. Exactly what is it? Do you know? I wonder how many of you up there really know the definition of construction equipment. What qualifies Mr. Baldwin to be able to make the decision for so many who are depending on this equipment to live and feed their families? Seems he's been given the power by someone to play a game with the blue-collar working and tax-paying people of Portsmouth. We believe that you all are going to open a can of worms you will wish you had never done. Drivers park their school buses in their driveways or on the street in front of their homes for their convenience. Wrecker drivers park their small or large wreckers or rollbacks at their homes because they need them when they get a call and they have to leave on a moment's notice. I truly foresee problems that perhaps you all haven't even thought about, but you should before you have more people who are disillusioned with Portsmouth. Portsmouth has a lot to lose, and why you all do not want to recognize it is beyond me, as well as beyond the realm of the citizens that I've spoken with. We've sent emails to you council members 2 or 3 times recently, but we've only heard from 3 council members. So 4 of you do not have the courtesy to even respond. Now, you all were elected by the people, so you need to pay attention to the people, and you all know who you are. If you treat the voting people in Portsmouth like that, it's just plain pathetic on your part. Or are you just ignoring certain folks? Don't forget, council representatives, you were elected to make the city a better place to live and not have the people to run away. You were elected to serve all the people of the city, therefore you shouldn't play favorites. It's for lack of action such as yours that there is so much turmoil and sadness going on throughout the nation, because you aren't honestly concerned about the people who are paid your wages and supporting the city with their taxes. So please use your common sense and remove this specific item from Code Amendment 14407. Study it. You said it earlier in the meeting that it costs money. Well, the city workers are being paid anyway. It won't hurt anything to table this whole thing in 2015, will it? Thank you for the opportunity to speak. If I don't see you anymore, we wish you and the citizens of Portsmouth a Merry Christmas and a better year in 2015, and congratulations, and you'll be missed, Ms. Randall.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farm section of Churchland. Principles of Liberty 14. Life and liberty are secure only so long as the right of property is secure. Under English common law, a most unique significance was attached to the unalienable right of possessing, developing, and disposing of property. Land and products of the earth were considered a gift from God, which were to be cultivated, beautified, and brought under dominion. Because dominion means control, and control requires exclusiveness, private rights and property became an inescapable necessity of subduing the earth and bringing it under dominion. It is obvious that if there were no such thing as ownership in property, which means legally protected exclusiveness, there could be no subduing or extensive development of the resources of the earth. Without private rights in developed or improved property, it would be perfectly lawful for a lazy, covetous neighbor to move in as soon as improvements were completed and take possession of the fruits of this industrious neighbor. And even the covetous neighbor would not be secure because someone stronger than he could take it away from him. Without property rights, it would completely frustrate the Creator's command to multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and bring it under domination. A person's property is a projection of life, energy, and ingenuity. Therefore, to destroy or confiscate such property is in reality an attack on the essence of life itself. It is important to recognize that the common law does not make property sacred, but only the right which someone has acquired in that property sacred. Justice George Sutherland of the U.S. Supreme Court once told the New York State Bar Association, "It is not the right of property which is protected, but the right to property. Property per se has no rights, but the individual, the man, has three great rights, equally sacred from arbitrary interference: the right to his life, the right to his liberty, the right to his property. The three rights are so bound together as to be essentially one right. To give a man his life but deny him his liberty is to take from him all that makes his life worth living. To give him his liberty but take from him the property which is the fruit and badge of his liberty is to still leave him a slave. The primary purpose of government is to protect property. John Adams saw private property as the most important single foundation stone undergirding human liberty and human happiness. He said, the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. 14-407 Code Amendment that is prohibiting the storage of construction equipment on residential lots. The question is, where does Virginia law allow the creation of codes and or ordinance for property that is not owned by the city? The definition of property, rights by Washington State Supreme Court Justice Richard B. Sanders wrote, property in a thing consists not merely in its ownership and possession, but in the unrestricted use, the right of use, enjoyment, and disposal. Anything which destroys any of the elements of property to that extent destroys the property itself. The substantial value of property lies in its use. If the right of use to be denied, the value of the property is destroyed and ownership is rendered a barren right. The city's planners have sworn protection of property rights while at the same time denying use. Why are we, the property owners, outraged with this policy? Because the use of our property we, the people, have paid for is being denied. Legislators protect the owner's rights of use, and you will protect our property rights. In closing, one of the ranchers said, if we don't have the right to own and control property, then we are property. And that is exactly what the government top-down policy is turning us into, property to the collective. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I had not anticipated speaking on this item again, but I was rather dismayed by the conversation that took place in the work session preceding this meeting and the dismissive attitudes of a number of members of council to what I thought were reasonable objections raised by a fellow citizen regarding the construction equipment prohibition. I learned a long time ago in government theory that government is involved in the balancing of rights of individuals within a democratic society. And my right to be shielded from what I perceive as ugliness is offset by a neighbor's right to the peaceful enjoyment of his or her property. It's nice if we can work things out on a person-to-person level, where courtesy would dictate our relationships and a balancing of our respective rights and desires. But government often acts as a mediator between individuals in terms of their own goals and aspirations. This is one of those instances. I would love to not have to face the prospect of somebody parking a large piece of equipment on a neighboring property. And this change seems to have been a vehicle for bringing that state of affairs into being. But I have heard reasonable arguments, and there does seem to be certain areas of vagueness in what is and what isn't covered. Now, I have said to you before that I believe government acts most wisely when it acts most deliberately. I do not see a fire here that needs to be put out. We have lived with these particular circumstances that the changes would address for decades. So why not put this through another round of review in the interests of trying to get it right, in the interests of trying to find the proper balance among a diversity of interests? If we can make this work better, why should we not do so? I would ask, as the first speaker did, that this go back through the review process so that additional input from the community can be gathered and to see if we can't make the pieces fit together better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I think our city manager during the work session came up with a wise suggestion, and that was exactly to send this back to planning and to staff for some massaging. But obviously that's not going to be done. But I think this part of this ordinance is an ordinance looking for a problem. I don't think a law or ordinance should be passed when there's not a problem. There's not a deluge of citizens up in arms coming to this council, emailing us, saying that their neighbor has got a bulldozer parked in their backyard or a crane parked in their backyard. I've been on council longer than anybody up here, and counting tonight, I haven't had the first call as such. Now, I have had complaints about Bobcat tractors being parked in driveways, which I don't think that should occur. But we're talking about two different animals here. And as numerous speakers have pointed out, contained in this ordinance is about as clear as the water in the Elizabeth River on what it is we're going to cite. And equipment, to call equipment landscape equipment or construction equipment, it's been pointed out numerous times that some of that equipment can be used for both applications. So then it was said, well, if so-and-so's got that, you'll be all right. Don't worry about this ordinance. Well, that's fine and dandy as long as the person saying that is still here. What happens when that person is no longer here? That's going to be lost in the bureaucracy. So I think we are opening a can of worms in a lot of instances. We have more ordinances than we've got people to enforce them, as we said here tonight. And I don't think this ordinance is needed. I do think there's some good pieces in there, and I hate to vote against it, but I can't support something that I don't think a problem exists. May have been a problem with one company that I heard, but I hope we're not at the point that we're enacting ordinances to get back at one commercial company. So I'm going to vote not to support this.
Okay. Ms. Simmons?
Thank you, sir. I'm sitting here thinking I've gone to the dark side. It's not often you see me sit here and absolutely agree with Bill Moody and Mark Kadoga-Utroski all at the same time. But I agree with Mr. Moody, and we talked about this in the work session. I'm going to, for purposes of discussion, make a motion to approve 14407 except for Amendment 24.
I second that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm going to vote against Ms. Simmons' motion. You know, there was plenty of public comment on these issues through the Planning Commission. Mr. Meeks and I sat through most of it. We are talking about doing something for one or two people. I've been, I sat on Planning Commission for 8 years. During those years, Mr. Moody served on council. Been being up here for 4.5, and only one person has come up wanting to do something else with this other than what we're trying to do. So I'm going to vote against Ms. Simmons' motion. There's a lot of ordinance work being done. If they deem this something to be looked at in the rest of the ordinance, fine. But Planning Commission did a relatively thorough job with this, and I'm going to vote against her motion and hope that when the original motion comes up to vote, hopefully for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Simmons?
I just want to clarify, if we vote, I'm asking the clerk now.
Yes, and the city attorney.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, I don't want to throw all of 14407 out with the bathwater. So if that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to rescind my motion.
That's what you're about to do.
Okay, then I'm going to take my motion back.
Okay, all right.
That's what will happen if
Okay.
it's voted down.
All right, I'm going to take it back.
All right, very good. Okay, Madam Clerk?
It's before council.
Okay.
Second.
Very good.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to adopt 14407 as it is,
Yes.
and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 5-1. I know we'll fix it. Yeah. Okay. Just keeping track.
Okay, we're
Okay.
good. City Manager?
City Manager's Report 14-468, adoption of an ordinance. Appropriate $40,325,841 by classification to the FY 2014-15 operating budget for the Portsmouth Public School System to implement the third quarter of the approved operating budget. Vision Principle, Efficient Responsive Government. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. You have, oh, I'm like you're speaking. Second. We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-469, adoption of an ordinance appropriating the sum of $583,262 in the FY 2014-15 General Fund operating budget for reductions in state aid. Vision Principle, Efficient Responsive Government, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. Council members, with the next item, I'm going to read the item and you all will vote. But there will be a very brief presentation of a plaque to the city following that, just so you're aware. 14-470, adoption of a resolution endorsing the Keep America Beautiful program and recognizing the reestablishment of Portsmouth's Keep America Beautiful affiliation known as Keep Portsmouth Beautiful. Vision, principles, neighborhoods, and sense of community and quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. If Donna Corbis and her delegation would join Mayor Wright at the podium, please.
I will.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Wright, members of the City Council, and other distinguished representatives, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is John Duell, National Trainer for Keep America Beautiful. I'm here to congratulate the City of Portsmouth on reestablishing its affiliation with Keep America Beautiful. Here this evening are members of your city-supported Keep Portsmouth Beautiful Advisory Committee. Also with us, who has been very supportive of this process, is Director of General Services, Dennis Begley. Mr. Begley, would you please stand? Thank you. Keep America Beautiful, founded in 1953, is the nation's leading nonprofit that brings people together to build and sustain vibrant communities. The KAB mission is to engage individuals to take greater responsibility for their community environment. KAB offers solutions that create clean, beautiful public places, reduce waste, and increase recycling, generate positive impact on the local economies, and inspire generations of environmental stewards. Over the past 9 months, led by Donna Corbis, Recycling Manager, your Keep Portsmouth Beautiful Advisory Committee collected important information all over the city in the areas of education, ordinances, enforcement, resources and tools, in addition to conducting the Litter Index. This process concluded 2 weeks ago with an affiliation training and a strategic planning session to help chart the committee's first year of work. This work will continue and expand on the many years of dedicated service by the former Portsmouth Clean Community Commission. Tonight, I am proud to announce that the City of Portsmouth, with its new city-appointed committee, have reestablished and renewed their affiliation with Keep America Beautiful, and they are rededicated to keeping Portsmouth beautiful. And I have a plaque here, very brief. Keep America Beautiful. Keep Portsmouth Beautiful is officially certified, recertified really, as an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful on this 9th day of December 2014, and it is signed by Jennifer Jane, Chief Executive Officer of Keep America Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you, and on behalf of the city, I accept this, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation on this committee and working to keep our city beautiful. You have no idea how many organizations that constantly call us asking about adopt a spot, what happened to it, why can't we have it back, and all of those things. So now we're back in full swing, and hopefully we can take all of those phone calls and now direct them to this committee, and we can get all of these organizations set up and volunteering and doing some of the things in our community to keep Portsmouth beautiful. Thank each and every one of you. Bless you. Yep. Great job.
14-471, adoption of a resolution for the City of Portsmouth consenting to the settlement of an administrative complaint by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Region 3 against the City of Portsmouth. Vision principle, efficient responsive government, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-472, adoption of resolutions approving the 2015 state legislative package and the 2015 federal legislative package. Vision principles, change in new directions, a robust economy for working men and women, leading maritime center, lifelong learning community, neighborhoods and sense of community, quality of life, efficient responsive government, a proud military community, and pride of past. Item A, adoption of a resolution endorsing the city's 2015 General Assembly legislative package. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I want to urge you, first of all, to divide the question into two parts. I would urge you to split off the casino gambling piece of the legislation so you can vote on that separately and then vote on the rest of the package. I am in substantial support of the other items. With regard to casino gambling, my position has not changed since I appeared before you at a public hearing a year ago. Casino gambling is a cancer. It is a poverty maker, and it holds out false hope for economic benefits that are derived by only a few at the expense of the many. I have viewed with interest the seemingly endless accounts of how the gambling industry in Atlantic City seems to be imploding upon itself. Every couple of weeks, there's another gambling establishment shutting down, more people being put on the unemployment rolls. The economic health of Atlantic City, which was supposed to be buoyed up by this new pseudo-industry, is now taking its hits as the fortunes are declining. It goes to that adage about being nice to the people you meet on your way up the ladder of success, because you're going to meet them again on your way back down. I have no real fear that Senator Lucas's bill will see the light of day, especially since the Virginia Senate has now turned majority Republican. I believe that the House of Delegates isn't going to budge on it either. But, you know, when there is something that is odious and loathsome, the best place to stop it is closest to home. So I would like to see you reverse yourselves. I know that three of you, the mayor, Councilmember Edmonds, Councilmember Randall, voted against it last year. I would hope that the two of you who are here will vote against it, but I hope you will be joined by others. The packet of information that was in the documentation for this cites a glowing report that I didn't know at the time that I spoke last year, but subsequently discovered. it was published by the gaming industry itself. And that, to me, has about as much credibility as the environmental report issued by BP following the oil spill in the Gulf. So I would hope that you would see reason and not endorse it this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 4-2. Item B, adoption of a resolution endorsing the city's 2015 federal legislative agenda package. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. We have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-473, adoption of a motion to accept and file the city's 2013-14 comprehensive annual financial report, vision, principle, efficient, responsive government. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godaldik-Yatrovsky.
Good evening one more time, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. Note I said one more time, not one last time. I am certainly in favor of your receiving and filing this, but this report on our financial performance for the last fiscal year. But I would like to draw your attention to a particular section in tonight's work session presentation. The net available fund balance in millions, slide 13 for you, page 7 for me. I note with some degree of satisfaction that the net available fund balance, that is to say, the portion of the fund balance that is above the 15% policy limit and has not been otherwise designated, is $5.1 million. So this is available money that could be reappropriated. And I'm going to urge you to reappropriate it in two specific areas, not all of it, just a portion of it. First, I'm going to ask you to reappropriate the amount that will be raised by the $7 increase in the vehicle registration fee you adopted as part of this year's budget, this current fiscal year's budget, and take that amount of money, which I think was in the neighborhood of $450,000 or thereabouts, and rescind the increase in the registration fee. If we can term return on equity as a justification for using monies collected as part of the water fees that the citizens pay and use that to help balance the budget, then I would submit this is a return on investment. And the investors in question are the tax-paying citizens of the city of Portsmouth. So since you ended up with a surplus at the end of the last fiscal year, then how about indemnifying the investors and taking them off the hook for money you assessed us to pay for an additional 1% raise that you didn't think you could fund through normal budgetary allocations. I feel that would be equitable. And the good news is their pocketbooks, our pocketbooks, have not been touched yet by that $7 fee. It doesn't come due until June. So you have time in the new calendar year to put that into effect. The other allocation that I would ask for is enough money to add an additional 1% to what you reallocated to the school board for monetary compensation for their employees, which would have been in a percentage range of 2%. Since you had enough money before these funds were known to give bonuses to constitutional officers' employees, constitutional officers and their employees, without any moral obligation to do so, I think it would only be fitting to ensure that the employees of the school division receive 3% as well. We do have the money here, unencumbered, and I would ask that you make that appropriation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, we'd like to call Carol Swindell, our CFO, forward.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce to you Krista Edoff, who is the partner with Cherry Becker, which is the firm that audits the city's financial statements. Krista is a partner with the firm, and she is also the head of the Government Services Unit for the Hampton Roads office of Cherry Becker. And with that, I'll pass the mic over to Krista.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of City Council. I'm pleased to be here with you again tonight to report the results of the June 30, 2014 audit. Now, I understand you were briefed on the audit results during the work session, so I will make my presentation fairly brief, limited to what I have to tell you as a result of the audit. So in conducting our audit was of the city and its component units, which includes the school board. And those results are reported to you in the financial statements you have in front of you tonight. We were engaged to audit those financial statements. In addition to that, we're also engaged to audit the federal major programs, so the grants that you receive from the federal government, as well as your compliance with state laws, regulations, and other related agreements. So when we issue our opinions, it's on those three particular items. I am pleased to report that you do have an unmodified opinion on all three of those reports, again, this year. That is a clean opinion. It's the best opinion you could have hoped for as a result of an audit. Now, in conducting our audit, we are required to assess the city's internal control environment, not to opine on internal controls. For example, a SOX audit in the public world is an opinion on internal controls. That does not apply to the governmental world, so we do not opine on your internal controls. However, we assess them for the design of our audit. And if any matters were to come to our attention related to your internal controls, we would report those to you in the schedule of findings and question cost. Again, as a result of our audit, if any non-compliance in our testing of grants or in our testing of state laws, regulations come to our attention, again, we'd also report those findings to you in that back schedule of findings and question costs. Now, also in conducting our audit, there are several matters I'm required to tell you as a result. We did not propose any material audit adjustments during the audit this year. We did not have any disagreements with management or any difficulties encountered during conducting our audit. Now, the numbers you see before you in the financial statements, not every number in there is a hard and fast number. Some of those items are estimates, and they are based on certain assumptions that are subject to change over time. So the number you see for those particular estimates may not be the exact number it ends up being in time. Those particular estimates relate to the allowance for your doubtful accounts, primarily on property taxes. They relate to depreciation expense, as that's calculated based on the estimated useful life of assets. And then the liabilities related to pension, OPEB, and then any other actuarially calculated liabilities. And so just understand that those are not hard and fast numbers. There's some underlying assumptions built into presenting those numbers, and they could over in time change. In addition, we are required to tell you that we are independent of the city. That does mean that there's no bias or conflict of interest that would require us to give you opinion that you actually did not warrant. So there was none of that during our audit. With that really concludes my audit. I'd really like to thank Ms. Swindell and her finance staff, as well as the cooperation of all those that we worked with during the audit, and I will take any questions if you have any.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yep.
Members of council, we have no additional speakers on this item. We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-474, adoption of a motion accepting the 2015 calendar of city council meetings. Vision principle, efficient responsive government. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption. Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. New business, 14-475, boards and commissions. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, members of council, the Personnel Committee would like to submit the following appointments for your approval. Economic Development Authority, Anthony Hines, Miriam Jiggets. Planning Commission, Preston Vaughn and Albert Williams. Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission, James Toops.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-476, items submitted by council members. Adoption of a resolution requesting the General Assembly of Virginia to amend the charter of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. Oh, excuse
Move
me.
it.
Ms. Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a sort of a personal comment on this charter change. Since I am the poster child for Resign to Run, I will support this, and it's not because it's favorable for members of council to become mayor. It's because I think it's unfair that the only job in the world, literally, any of the people sitting up here can run for president of the United States, but you can't run for mayor. And there's something wrong about that. So I'll be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Ms.
Members of council, we're in need of a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 4-2. Adoption of a motion authorizing the city attorney to file a petition for issuance of a writ of election by the circuit court to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of the Commonwealth's attorney, Earl C. Mobley. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godaldi-Kietrovsky.
Good evening one final time, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I would hope that in your framing of the petition, you could express a preference that the special election would be concurrent with next November's general election. Since council had the charter changed a couple of years ago to provide for council and school board elections to coincide with November general elections so that the city did not have to bear the cost of staffing the polls and doing the other necessary tasks, but instead could piggyback on state funding. I think it would be prudent for us to continue in that same mode. I don't see where there will be any irreparable harm to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office because there is an interim Commonwealth's Attorney, and that person will have an opportunity to get more time in job, time in grade before the election, which can only be beneficial in terms of the resume. So I don't know if you have the option, but if you do, I would ask that you consider it. I would be remiss if I did not wish you all a happy St. Lucia Day, which will be this Saturday. Those of you who are not of Swedish ancestry, you're welcome to celebrate it anyway. It's a very happy holiday in Sweden and part of this season of holidays. To everybody else, happy whichever holiday you celebrate or don't. May the rest of this year be peaceful, and may you enjoy the blessings of home and family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my question is to our city attorney. After we approve this, what is the process on establishing the date of the election?
The statute provides for the circuit court to set the date of the special election, and it says that they'll issue the writ promptly, ordering the election promptly, and shall order the special election to be held on the date of the next general election in November or in May, depending on which general election date applies to the petition, to the locality where the vacancy is, and only if the locality requests a different date would it consider a different date.
Thanks.
So I think he's getting his wish.
Members of council, there are no additional speakers on this item. We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. Any additional items submitted by council members?
Yeah, let me first of all, we've got a birthday celebration coming up, and I'm going to ask our Director of Library, Todd Elliott, if he would come up and make the grand announcement and give us all of the fancy details about our library.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of council. Yes, indeed, there has been a birthday celebrated in the city of Portsmouth. Portsmouth Public Library turned 100 on December 1st, 2014, and it's okay to clap. And and I'm so excited, to be able to make that announcement. Portsmouth Public Library was founded by the Portsmouth Students Club on December 1st, 1914, and was originally in a room in an annex behind the courthouse, the 1846 courthouse. Now, the library has gone through a lot of changes as a reflection of its society at the time. The Portsmouth Public Library was also segregated and excluded African American citizens. So in 1944, Reverend Willis came to council and asked that a library to serve Black Americans be established by the city. And I should point out that residents raised funds towards that, and then the city came in with about $11,000 in support of that library, which came into fruition in 1945, December 20th, actually, 1945. And it's funny because I was talking to Miss Jiggets, who is now on one of the commissions, and her aunt, Margaret Bond, was a school librarian. And Ms. Randall, you remember her. But and one of and probably the first person in the city to actually get their library degree, and another person that Portsmouth may remember or should remember is E.J. Josie, who became the first African American president of the American Library Association. Portsmouth, Norcom grad. I know. So a lot to be proud of there. Anyway, Helen Kirkpatrick became the director of the Portsmouth Library in 1943 and will hold that post until 1974. In 1959, the city, Dr. James Holly III and Dr. Hugo Owens filed a lawsuit to have access to Portsmouth Public Library. They won their lawsuit. In 1963, Portsmouth Public Library and Portsmouth Community Library, which was the name of the African American facility, became one library at 601 Court Street, where Main Library remains to this day. Dean Burgess became director from 1974 to 1996, and followed by Dean was Sue Burton from 1996 to 2009. I came in 2009, and the city, the Portsmouth Public Library has gone through a whole lot of changes. 3 fires, the addition of 3 branches. We've added another 300,000 odd items to the collection, the original collection of 5,000. So a lot of different changes there. And we've received a lot of support from council, from city staff, and from our Portsmouth Public Library Foundation, our friends of the Portsmouth Public Library, and of course, our citizens, our community. They have done a lot to support us. We are inviting the public to attend, to join with us in the celebration on Saturday, December 13th from 2 to 3 p.m. We will be serving up cake to all of our patrons. Everyone who comes in is welcome to come in and join us for that. So we encourage you to stop in and to keep in mind that libraries are about people. They, like I said before, they reflect the community. But Portsmouth Public Library has been providing for the literacy needs, information needs for this city for a century. And we look forward to doing it a century more, at least. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have, what is that you have with you?
This graphic is also on display, currently on display at the Churchland Branch Library, and it was commissioned by the Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library and created by David Radcliffe. But please go out to Churchland and see it, or you will see it when it gets mounted over at the main library. But celebrate 100 years.
Thank you very well. Another round of applause for that. Thank you. Well done, Todd.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir?
Could I ask Todd to come back?
Sure, please.
This man loves library. In fact, he wears libraries. If everybody would look at his tie. Truly a lover of libraries in the city of Portsmouth.
You've heard my story before. My mom took me to Main Library to get my first library card. I was either 7 or 8. So it does a lot. It does a lot of good in the community to have a library, and it enriches you educationally, just all around. So get over to the library, get a library card.
Todd, we're pleased to have you at the helm. Thank you for what you do. Good job,
Thank you, sir.
All right, very good. Okay, next up is on the items for submitted by council. Let me first of all say, last week we recognized and celebrated our Long Service Award ceremony here in the city of Portsmouth, and we had a total of 82 employees that receive Long Service Awards. 39 of those employees had 20 years of service, 17 had 25 years, 11 of them had 30 years, and 15 of them had 35 years of service. And they came and ranged from 17 different departments throughout the city, and total years of service, 2,060 years of service to those employees. And it was an excellent ceremony, and we were very pleased and honored to see family and friends to come out and celebrate these wonderful employees that do the very best that they can to make sure our city run every day. And we were honored to be there. And I was also honored to recognize our city treasurer, Jimmy Williams, for his 20 years of service as an elected official. And it was a grand time. So I want to congratulate all of those employees and Mr. Williams for his hard work. As was mentioned, we do now have a new judge in the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, Judge Earl Mobley. It was quite an event last week, and to see all of our judicial friends from throughout the Commonwealth come to pay tribute to this well-deserved person, and his comments and his family comments was just so touching. So it was a great honor to be there and to recognize and applaud Earl for his great accomplishment in his, I believe, 12 years as Commonwealth Attorney in the city of Portsmouth. And then also yesterday we celebrated a Blue Star Memorial dedication over at Cedar Grove Cemetery. The city of Portsmouth partnered with the Portsmouth Area Council of Garden Clubs. You may have seen a clip on the news that we did that in a very cold and windy day yesterday. But I want to thank the Portsmouth Area Council of Garden Clubs and the city of Portsmouth, our Department of General Services, and all that participated in that, because that is quite an event. And I believe this blue marker recognition was started in 1945 to recognize servicemen and women that served in all of our armed services throughout the country. And it is our honor to have a blue marker here in the city of Portsmouth at the Cedar Grove Cemetery. And then lastly, we talk about all of our places we visit and all of the things, and in the holiday season, the gift of giving and the reflection of all of our programs, our citizens, and the things that we're thankful of. I was honored to, last Friday, December the 5th, to be the keynote speaker at Zion Bethel United Church of Christ with Dr. D.A. Peace as the pastor. They were celebrating their 5th year of their drug and substance abuse ministry. And don't know why I was asked to be the keynote speaker, because they had testimonies, and there were citizens that came from all over that's been a part of that program and our drug treatment program here that's run by Judge Johnny Morrison and Vernon Williams. And it was really amazing to listen to people talk about how their lives have been transformed by that program, and to see the family members and everyone that's affected, and see the good work that they're doing over at Zion Bethel as well as in our drug court. So I want to thank them for the invitation. I was pleased to be there and to witness the goodness of the good Lord and people working to help people. And I shared my piece, Ms. Randall, with Portsmouth is for people, all kinds of people. And lastly, we recognize Mr. Horace Savage, the Portsmouth School Foundation did, as their distinguished alumnus. And that was quite an event to have Mr. Savage, I think, from I.C. Norcom High School class of 1942, to be recognized as our distinguished alumnus. and all of the great things that that man has meant to this great city and the school system and the LEFCO leadership program and all of the other things that Mr. Savage has done. And it was a great honor to be there as well to proclaim his day there. And with that, Ms. Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to talk about the Old Town Music Festival and Winter Wonderland, the Coleman Collection, and Santa Claus, because I see that Tony Goodwin is on the list of non-agenda speakers, and I'm sure he's going to tell us all about that. But I did get a call from a friend very near and dear earlier today, who's not here tonight, who asked me when I was talking about all the great things happening during the holidays in the city if I would mention that at St. Mark Academy, at 2714 Frederick Boulevard on December the 18th at 7 p.m., the St. Mark Academy is having their Christmas pageant of their school children, and it's open to the public, and Dr. Edmonds invites everyone to come and enjoy the Christmas pageant.
All right, very good. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned attending Earl Mobley, Judge Mobley's event. I was scheduled to do that, but I was visiting another judge that started out in Portsmouth. And
what'd you do this time?
Actually, what I did, we sent some drug dealers, a drug conspiracy. Judge Mark Davis is a federal judge, and I got summoned for federal jury duty.
Oh.
And just so happened, the drug ring that was operating from Georgia to New York, they had done a deal over on Twin Pines Road, and which is about 2 miles from where I live. So it gave me a great happiness to that the jury found all of them guilty. So it'd be up to the federal judge Mark Davis to sentence them. But that's not what I wanted to speak. I was out at Craddock, had their Christmas in Craddock event Saturday. If you remember, Saturday, most of the day was a very nice day. Cloudy but nice, but about the time their event started, it wasn't so nice. It was pouring down rain, but they used the former rec center, crime prevention center now, moved everything inside and had a great crowd there. Santa Claus was there. Kids were taking pictures with Santa, and they made lemonade out of a lemon, you might say, and had another great event out in the community of Craddock. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Madam Clerk, before I turn it over to you, I do want to announce to the public that on Tuesday, December the 30th at 6 p.m. here at City Council Chambers, we're going to have our oath of office ceremony for our newly elected members of council. Also want to, and that's going to be here again Tuesday, December the 30th, 6 p.m. in City Council Chambers. And also want to announce that the Reverend Dr. Mark Whitaker and his wife, Dr. Ingrid Whitaker, will be sworn in on December the 22nd at New Bethel Baptist Church. And this is the first time, I think, in the history of the city that a husband and wife has been elected to serve in public office. And so this is a historic moment. I want to congratulate both of them on their election, as well as all of our other school board members, as well as Mr. Moody and Mr. Cherry for being reelected. So please come out on the 22nd at New Bethel Baptist Church and here on December the 30th for the oath of office ceremony. Madam Clerk.
14-447, report on pending items, and we have none this evening. We do have a presentation, a report by Ms. Wanda Gill with our Parks and Recreation Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor, esteemed council. Merry Christmas. I am so excited to tell you about the wonderful things that are happening in recreation. Most recently this week, we finished a brand new skate park at City Park. So if you have a hankering to go skateboarding, please go by skate park at City Park and enjoy the skate park. Okay, it's beautiful, so please go and see that. I also want to update you on the progress we're making on the former military academy on Portsmouth Boulevard, which is formerly known as the Pines. We're doing wonderful things to restore that facility that's been vacant for more than 4 years. So you can imagine if you walked away from your house for 4 years and just left it, there'd be some deferred maintenance items you have to do. So that's what we're working on right now. Properties management is doing a wonderful job of working on winterizing the facility, doing the abatement process. We're trying to make the facility ADA required by putting in electronic doors, putting railings on the gym. So as you go up and down the bleachers, that they're safe, making the bathrooms, restrooms ADA compliant. We're doing a technology plan for internet, cable, and phone. So we have a lot of wonderful things working that we're trying to do to make the building beautiful and safe. The other thing I want to mention that is that I know it's very important to you to have public engagement and citizen input about this facility. So the Parks and Recreation Commission is working very hard to get input from the citizens. We'll still have the surveys being distributed and the public utilities bills. They're still online. We're going to the Civic League meetings to distribute those. We've sent them out to every single Civic League. So the commission will be here in January to provide you with a report on the findings and the input from your citizens and what they want in the facility. I know that's very critical to you, so I want you to know that the commission is working really hard to make sure that takes place.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
Very good. Yeah, let me ask you about the Citizens Advisory Group. We had several people come up and mention that, and we all thought that was a great idea, and we
Yes, sir.
kind of pushed them to the Parks and Recreation Commission under Ed Brown, who's just been announced the chair. I understand he's doing a great job and actually going out in the community and speaking. I think we were at a couple of civic leagues together where he actually spoke and talked about and invited citizens to come in and give them feedback. How are we working in conjunction with that advisory group? Has it actually formulated, and are they
It is.
working with
The
them?
advisory group is meeting every single month. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night, we're meeting once again to talk about some other surveys we've received, which is more than 500 to date.
That's very good.
And every single member of the advisory group has taken hard copies of the survey and has gone out to the community and distributed those, trying to get citizen input to make sure everyone knows what's going on and they have a chance to voice what they want to see in that facility. So thank you for your commitment to recreation.
Absolutely. I want to applaud you and your effort with that, because it's very important. You know, I think this is a huge asset to the city, and how we move forward and what we have there to make it a centerpiece and attraction for all of our citizens, not just the young folks. There's a lot of acreage and land there to be able to do a lot of things. I know we don't have the budget to do it all, but we do want to make sure we gather all that data and we move forward. So I want to applaud you and your staff and the Parks and Rec Commission, as well as that advisory board, for what you're doing. And we look forward to some good positive information. When, in January?
In January, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Ms. Gill.
How are you,
The fishing pier, I want to commend you and staff, too, for bringing the temporary fishing pier online about right on the date that y'all said it would be ready. I don't know how much use it's getting with the weather
We've
that
had
we
quite a
have.
few people out there, believe it or not, fishing, so.
Terrific.
I haven't seen any fish come out. I've seen crabs.
Yeah, that one doesn't go out in the water very far.
No, sir.
Speaking of fishing piers, how's the progress coming along on the permanent pier?
We have completed the grant application that's been submitted to the state, and then the Virginia Marine Commission has said we do not need a permit to do so because it's not beyond the 150 feet for the temporary pier, so we're good to go on that, sir. We're just waiting for the decision of the grant committee, which we'll receive. The first notice will be in January. We'll have to go back in March and do a full presentation to the panel, and we'll get the final decision in May.
Terrific. One more question. The Craddock Rec Center, although I think I would be more inclined to call it an activity building at the middle school, when's that projected to come
That will
online?
be open this month. It looks fantastic. The colors look great. The building looks great.
Terrific.
The kids are excited. We've got great programs planned, so you will be very pleased.
Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, since you're up here being peppered and we've talked quite a bit about our tennis courts and all, can you give us a brief update on those tennis courts?
Yes, sir.
And where that piece
Certainly.
is? Okay.
Wilson High School courts have been completed. They're ready, and people are playing on those now. The City Park tennis courts have been resurfaced, and they're ready to go. The last one we're doing is Cavalier Manor tennis courts, and we're in that drying period. In order to cure asphalt for tennis court, we need at least 50 degrees temperature, which we don't have right now. It's a little chilly. So we're in that curing process, which is 120 days. Once we do that, we'll put one final layer of asphalt down, and we'll start the striping, put the poles back in, put the nets up, and we're done. So if the weather would cooperate, we could probably get those done probably about February, but that's not going to happen.
Okay, very good. And one last question before you leave. The Citizens Advisory Group, is that made up and comprised up of citizens from all over the city?
Yes, sir. And the wonderful thing is that that committee is made up of someone from every single zip code in the city of Portsmouth. So we were very careful to make sure that each civic league, each group, each community was represented. So there is one person from every single zip code on our commission to make sure everyone's voice is heard.
Okay, and they're working well with the Parks and Rec Commission?
They are a wonderful, President Ed Brown is doing a great job. The commission's working really hard. So we're excited about the future of recreation and what we're going to do.
Thank you. We look forward to more. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Yes, ma'am. Good night. Madam Clerk?
14-478, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Lewis Richardson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Honorable members of council and fellow citizens. I'm Lewis Richardson. I'm the manager of the Portsmouth office of the Virginia Employment Commission. So basically, I wanted to just kind of come here and introduce myself to you all and let you know where our new location is. We've been there for a while, but it's kind of a new location because we were at a few different locations within the city. But we are at Williams Court 1 Shopping Center at 4824 George Washington Highway. We're right between the Food Line and the Ollie's and kind of directly behind the Arby's.
Okay.
And of course, some of the services that we offer, the free services that we offer at the Virginia Employment Commission to employers and citizens is free online registration on a secure website, free online job postings for employers to attract more candidates for their jobs, free use of office space for hiring events, interviewing and screening of candidates, free pre-screening of candidates to suitable employment, free access to thousands of suitable candidates for employment, free access to highly skilled veteran candidates, and free labor market information. And what we're trying to do is just basically trying to just get the word out to all the citizens within the city of Portsmouth where we're located and the services that we provide to the community. The Portsmouth office is also having a hiring event for a company called Alorica. And it's an in-house job found Tuesday, the 16th of December from 9:30 until 12 noon. The company is currently hiring customer service representatives for Verizon Wireless and DirecTV. And of course, our job is to continue to try to have hiring events so we can help the citizens of the city of Portsmouth and the surrounding area find suitable employment as quickly as possible. So I appreciate just coming before you and just kind of sharing with you what we have to offer, and we're available to serve the citizens and the employers of this community.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Let me ask you, how long have you been at your current location now?
We've been at that location, say right around 5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, very good.
And we kind of moved around. We went from South Street over near Frederick and then to Queen Street. Then for a while there was not an office here. And of course we came back to the George Washington Highway in our Victory Boulevard location.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well done. Good night.
Mr. Gary Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar, we're going to provide you with the microphone.
He's got a mic right here for you, sir.
It works.
That work? Okay. Right, very good.
Whoops. Yes, good evening. My name is Gary Dunbar, and I'm the service officer for VFW Post 2894 in Chesapeake. Part of my job is to assist veterans and their widows when they need help with the VA or for many other problems. And one of the things that has become very painfully clear is that when the service member dies, the widows are forgotten about. The VA couldn't care less. There's nothing for the widows. And I'm sure it's the same thing in the with civilians and the spouses that are lost, but our charter only allows us to deal with veterans and their widows. 4 months ago, the widow of Navy Master Diver Carl Brashear reached out to the Navy divers at Little Creek and said she needed a wheelchair ramp because she's been basically trapped in her house for a long time. And those sailors contacted Channel 10. They raised enough money and installed a really nice, professionally installed wheelchair ramp. But then they realized the rest of the house needed help, and they were a little bit overwhelmed, so they contacted me. I went over and looked, and sure enough, the whole inside the house needs to be gutted and restructured because she can't get her extra wide wheelchair through any door in the house. Okay. I've got a contractor willing to do the work. Home Depot's willing to supply most of the materials. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower will supply all the manpower we can ever possibly want to do the work around the construction site. CBs from Little Creek are willing to come out and help on their off-duty hours. I'm here because we had a sewer repair company come out and take a look because the lines were clogged. And they said all the piping has to be replaced. And they thought there was a possibility that the tap going into the city sewer lines could be damaged. They said it was a possibility. Well, I'm a retired Navy chief, and I'm a firm believer in Murphy's Law. And if we start digging up sewer lines and we're looking down at this thing and it's cracked or whatever reason it's damaged, if there's a fee involved, I would like to get it waived because the expense of rebuilding a house is enormous. A amazing Reverend Clementine Mays, a local reverend, her congregation is supplying the rent to move Mrs. Brashear into the Harbor Tower Apartments because that's the only place I could find in all of Portsmouth that her extra wide wheelchair could get around in. And that's about $1,600 a month. So I need to get this job finished as soon as possible. So my concern is that if something pops up, and it will, and I find out that there's a fee or something with the city, I would like your help to get it resolved quickly. Okay, keep my fingers crossed, and maybe the sewer tap will be perfect and there's no problem. But it could be an issue. Along the same lines, I've found that a little preventative construction at people's houses. For example, there's an awful lot of gray hair and bald-headed people in this room, and chances are a lot of us need hand grips in the bathroom, by the toilets, by the showers, and by bathtubs, and a taller commode. And something as simple as that, for just a few $100s, can keep someone from breaking a hip, other bones, and putting them into a rest home. I have yet to see a World War II or Korean War veteran who's still active and vital, enjoying his life, who didn't have a loving wife taking care of him. So if the wife gets injured, chances are both of them are going to wind up in a rest home. And VFW, Home Depot, and the Navy want to keep as many people in their own homes as long as possible to keep them from going through the ordeal of being in a rest home. So, again, I know there's nothing you can do about it, but it would be nice if somehow somebody could come up with a program to help people get these hand grips installed in restrooms. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to defer to our city manager here briefly, but let me ask you, what is your timeline you're looking at? I know you say you're expensing $1,600 a month, and you want to do that as quickly as
She's
possible.
moving into the Harbor Tower Apartments on the 15th. We're going to be taking the interior out of the building, hopefully on the 16th. Eisenhower wants to get it done in 3 days, and I was hoping on getting it done by the 10th of January, so it'll be somewhere between 3 days and the 10th of January. And after the holidays, my contractor and several other contractors are willing to come in and start the redesigning of the interior. It's a small house, but there's enough room to make it manageable in a bigger kitchen, a bigger, much bigger bathroom. She couldn't get into her bathroom or her back bedrooms because the wheelchair was too big, so we can redesign it and take care of that. But again, the main problem is going to be the rent, and I don't know how long the Reverend can keep on paying that kind of rent. Other than that, you got wonderful companies here in Portsmouth that are helping. I've gotten a free big dumpster delivered in porta potties, and there's a furniture company that's willing, well, the manager is asking corporate if they can supply all new furniture for her house because she needs it. And so when the time comes, I will like some support to get these people recognized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's about it.
Okay.
So
and,
thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and I want to, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of our entire council that we're going to make sure that we're there to be able to offset any problems or delays or impacts you may have, so we can make this as expeditious as possible. I thank you, men and women on the Eisenhower and all the other volunteers for what you do there.
Well,
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. This is a great volunteer effort. I mean, let's make sure.
Well, Home Depot has $150 million set aside nationwide to help veterans and their widows. But obviously, they want their money spent wisely. Okay, so there is a process, and it takes several months to get the grant approved, and then takes several more months to get the construction people involved. But anybody who has a veteran or a widow of one that needs help, there's a procedure to do it. They can contact me. And Home Depot has asked my VFW post in this area to coordinate getting people put on the list and helping them identify what needs to be done. But other than that, your help would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say that anything that is in the city right away is at no charge. If the sewer tap is broken, collapsed, whatever's in the street, to where our responsibility ends, we do, and we'll do it cheerfully. We do it at no charge.
Thank you. By the way, your staff today, I wandered into the city manager's office about 3-something, and between then and now, they've worked behind the scenes to answer, a good portion of my questions, and I appreciate your help with that.
You're welcome.
Also, there's I'm sure I'm going to get her title wrong. I would call her a counselor. Her name is Susan Johnson, and she works with you here in the city. She goes out and she's the worker that's responsible for looking in on Mrs. Bashir. She's been fantastic.
Okay.
A big help.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for what you do. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Tony Goodwin.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Managers, City Clerk, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for having me here this evening, and of course, I bring you good tidings. And the definition of good tidings is I bring you things that happen. With obviously, tis the season of holiday celebrations for many, and we here in Old Town and in Portsmouth do it the best, I think. With historically, obviously, Coleman's collection being housed down here at the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center. has seen wonderful numbers. But most importantly, the pinnacle of our celebrations obviously fall on this weekend. And I'm happy to announce that the collaboration between the city and city staff, the Old Town Civic League, and also the Old Town Business Association has been a wonderful arrangement and relationship as we've moved through our season of celebrations. So starting off first, this Friday evening, and I will of course miss a few, I'm sure, but most importantly, you can find most of these events on the Ports VA events website, as well as the Old Town Civic League website and the Old Town Business Association's website, oldtownportsmouth.com. But this evening, this Friday evening, we'll start the Old Town Historic Home Tour, holiday home tours. And there's going to be 7 houses that are open to the public. It is a ticketed event, and will happen on Friday evening from 5 until 9, and then again on Saturday for 2 days this year. Those tickets can be, of course, purchased, and we encourage everyone to purchase them at either the Visitor Center way back yonder, Antiques, and also Little Shops on High. But most importantly, for the first time, I believe, the Old Town Civic League's website has them online for your convenience. Following that, on Saturday is a big day for everyone, I believe, involved with the events, and between the Children's Museum and their gingerbread workshops, the Sports Hall of Fame and their gingerbread stadiums. We have both of those workshops going on, and both of those obviously create or a reservation event. And then at high noon, we start the Holiday Music Festival, which is a wonderful assortment of different school groups to professional musicians and amateurs alike, just singing the good praises of the season. So with that being said, we invite everyone down to the Old Town area and enjoy that festivity up until about 6 o'clock. And that one, of course, is free and open to anyone and everyone of all ages. Towards the end of the season and at the end of the year, December the 31st is our annual Scottish Walk. And this is a collaboration between the Business Association and Susan Healy, who has been coordinating this for many, many years. We will have the Scottish Walk, also known as First Foot, start off at the Washington and London intersections and walk through Old Town, celebrating the community of the past year, and also giving good well wishes to not only the community but the business community in downtown. Because right after the event ends at the High Street Landing, a lot of people disperse and go into the different restaurants and enjoy cheer and a little bit of everything else, but most likely will come into some music and just enjoy the fun and gathering of each other's company. So with that being said, we have still a lot of events on the books, and looking forward to a prosperous new year with events coming up in 2015. I said that, I believe, for the first time today, and it was a little strange, but we are ready to go. We'll take a couple of months of break, and with minor things happening, but we're excited about the opportunity to continue the collaboration with the city on future events between the Business Association, the Civic League, the community as a whole, and offer a great environment for everyone to enjoy. So thank you very much for the time tonight, and we look forward to seeing you sometime this holiday season.
Thank you, Tony. Very
Thank
good
you.
job. Yep.
Mr. Clyde Toller.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Wilson, good side now, Ms. White just said. Well, who said the Baptist preachers don't know when to shut up? That's not true. Reverend Lee showed tonight real quick, real nice, wasn't it? He didn't know I was going to do this, though. Anyway, Mr. Booty and Mr. Cherry, I told you be here again, then you looked at me again. Did I tell you you was going to be here? And Ms. Randall, thank you for your service. You followed in your mom's footsteps, but I'm telling you, your mom was a great lady, being with great friends. She did a lot of things for the state of Virginia and for the city. Mayor Wright, at the Veterans Day Parade, I haven't been here since then, but thank you for coming by my house, and we represented Portsmouth.
That's right.
And I think we were the only one that did represent Portsmouth in the parade. But anyway, thank you for being there. Now I know you got a little money. Lower my taxes. And on top of that, Miss White and staff does a good job in here. Put a 6-foot Christmas tree over there and light it up next year. Stop having this thing looking dull up in here, okay? We need to do something about that. And okay, tonight we have Mr. He's sitting right there with his head down. Mr. Overton. I know when he was about 3 or 6 weeks old. I know his parents and all, very nice. And you did a good thing up here tonight when you named that street. Because when I came here from Korea, I played taps for Fisher Funeral Home. Me, during that time, they said we're Negro and white. But anyway, we two played taps. So I played taps, and then he played echo, and then we switched. But we never charged anything because the commanding officer said, you'll do it, we did it. But I was the top trumpet player, so I did play taps a lot of times for Mr. Fisher and some more funeral homes, so this was good. During this time, the place was named Marfa Point, and it had a couple of things. That's where the old Tidewater Cottage used to be. I was stationed out there for 9 years before I left here. And Mr. Chair, the mayor is a brave man. I told you I didn't, but he's very brave. But you can tell him later. But anyway, now we know that we're going to have a new council member. Mayor, you will have to use that gavel side around. You get your nightstick, you get your hazer, or whatever. Now, Mayor, you're going to have to do some arrangements up there on that council. Now, listen to me. On that council, you got to do some arrangement because it's already bad blood. Move Mr. Meeks down. Miss Simmons, put the pastor on the end. He the junior, he goes on the end because it's already bad blood. You be ready. I don't want to see no fighting up here next year. Now, you did good this year. Let's keep it like that. Now, you know it's already some bad blood. See, a lot of people won't talk about these things. I do. Because you know why? You don't feed me, you don't give me nothing. And I'm a citizen. I pay tax. So I had a right to speak. But I must speak courteous and nice. But anyway, everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, all of you. And all of you citizens that sit at home and say, I don't drive at night, but you'll be out at the Christmas party getting free food and everything driving at night, but you won't come to city council. And if you're looking at this tape, I'm talking about you. And when you see me in the street, you can say something to me, but it's okay. I don't have no bad words for you. But anyway, Mr. Rowe, you're doing a good job. And this police chief, you're doing a good. You got a little trouble in the city now. We got a few bad eggs, but I'm sure he can take care of that. He'll take care of it. But anyway, everybody be nice, and I hope to see you next year. But if I don't, then come to my funeral. Thank you.
Sergeant Major, before you take your seat, let me first of all thank you for the recognition at the Veterans Day Parade. It was great representing the city of Portsmouth and being on the viewing stand to see you in the parade and what all you stand for and how much you love not only this city but our country. I couldn't help but notice the other day at the homegoing celebration of Mr. David Sanford, I saw you in attendance there at his church, and I wanted to know if you wanted a minute to reflect on Mr. Sanford.
Mr. Sanford was a great musician. He played in the USO band in World War II. Mm-hmm. That's when it was segregated, what they call Jim Crow. He was at Fort Meade, Maryland. I was there. I probably saw him, but I didn't know him personally during that time because I was at Fort Meade, Maryland during that time of World War II. But that film was about 3 hours long. And it was great. They had high school. They had people from all everywhere. They had opera singers there. It was a great film, but when mine come, hey, 15 minutes. That's enough. and I don't want no flowers. I done got mine already ready. 15 minutes, that's it. Hardin Cemetery, there I go. But anyway, it was a great funeral, and we all got to go. So let's face it. So let's be kind and go out this Christmas, buy somebody that don't have some, a coat, a pair of shoes, or either buy them a whole dinner like I do. Don't do Patrick. Don't go out and brag to everybody about what you do, but just go do something good for everybody. And I want to say, Mayor, you're a very brave man. Mr. Chair, tell you, you're very brave. I have to give you that, and you're doing good. I still can see your neck, your collar is loose, and you're losing that weight. That's good. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Steve Whitehead.
It's a hard act to follow, Mr. Whitehead.
He calls and spade to spade.
I think I might just fold my hand and go sit back down.
How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and city employees, and fellow citizens. I'm Steve Whitehead. I reside in the West Haven section of the city, and I've lived there since 1953. The city, for the most part, tries to be good stewards of the taxes that they collect from the citizens. It does not always happen to satisfy everyone, and sometimes it makes you scratch your head and say, what were they thinking? I'm critical of some of the things that take place as I see them and being a waste of the taxes that the city has to spend. My father, who came before council on many occasions over a 40-year period, often told me to limit my concerns to just one subject so they could be addressed. I've tried to do that, and on occasions, I've not always had someone address the concerns I've had. I'm encouraged by the response from the city manager, John Rowe, on an issue that I brought to their attention concerning a contractor doing sewer work for the city in my neighborhood. The matter tonight concerns the Welcome to Portsmouth sign on Portsmouth Boulevard at the Hodges Ferry Bridge. Last January, I brought the damage of that sign to the attention of Bill Moody and Elizabeth Simmons. It was a disaster how it looked. Several weeks after an auto accident destroyed it, car parts were still there in the bushes and around the damaged sign. It took repeated calls to the city and almost a month to remove the damaged sign and then the damaged shrubbery around it. Thanks, Bill and Elizabeth, for your help. With no sign for 4 or 5 months, I called and was informed that the original company that made the signs was no longer in business. They had to get someone else to make that sign. Just our luck that we buy from an operation that's now closed. The landscaping was done, and the sign eventually welcomed the travelers to Portsmouth. Now, the reason I'm here tonight, the city recently added some pampas grass to the existing landscaping of the sign. The plant is described as follows. It's a common name which may refer to any of several similar-looking, tall-growing species of grass. Tall-growing species of grass. That's the hard part right there. It's a tall grass growing in dense tussocks that can reach the height of 3 meters. That's 10 feet. Pampas grass is highly adaptable and can grow in a wide range of environments and climates. It also seeds prolifically. This part I couldn't understand. With each plant able to produce 1 million seeds during its lifetime. As such, in some areas, for example, like California, Hawaii, and Green Spain, it's regarded as an invasive weed, whilst in New Zealand and South Africa, the plant is banned for the sale because of its propagation. Burning pampas grass does not always kill it at the roots. You have to use something a lot stronger than that. This takes me back to the previous statement in this presentation. What were they thinking? I've also noticed that abundance in the median strip and the area surrounding Frederick Boulevard in front of Kroger Marketplace. I know you've seen that area too. Why would we plant something in front of a sign that would require it to be constantly pruned in order to see the sign? And as you can see from the pictures, it's already encroaching on the bottom of the sign. Do we have a friend of the Portsmouth family that has an abundance of these plants and they've given them to us? I sure would like to think that, and I hope we didn't spend our tax money to buy these things. They will require constant manpower to maintain, and the area on Frederick Boulevard does not, in my opinion, look that enticing or professional. It looks too busy, and we certainly could have planted vegetation that was appealing and required very little manpower. My hope tonight, by bringing this to the city's attention, is that someone will take the initiative to remove the pampas grass in front of the sign and take a second look at what they've done over in the area in front of Kroger Marketplace. With the addition of several new stores, more traffic that will pass in that area, we certainly want to look presentable. We don't need passerby saying, "What were they thinking?" Thank you.
Mr. Whitehead, thank you for those comments. You know, I've been sitting here wondering since I've been in this office for 4 years, will you and I ever agree on anything? And you finally found the subject that we both agree on. Absolutely, sir. That grass is going to get removed. Thank you very much. Good night. And on behalf of this historic, hold it, well, Ms. Simmons, will you stop it? Ms. Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Whitehead, I was going to suggest, we were all sitting up here giggling. I didn't want you to think we were giggling at you.
Well, you can. I don't care.
If you go back and look at the work session from a few hours ago, believe it or not, we talked about this grass and how ugly it was and how awful it was. And I think the comment that Mr. Rowe made was, I got it. I don't think we're going to see any more pampas grass anytime soon. I also think we need a motion for closed session.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
We do.
That's why I really pushed my button.
Okay, go ahead, Ms.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.23711 for the following purpose: consideration with legal counsel and a briefing by staff pertaining to a matter of actual litigation, Funkhauser et al. Versus the city, as permitted under subsection A7.
Second.
Second.
Can I say something else?
No, sir. We got a motion on the floor in a second, and we're agreeing on something. You need to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Trust me. That's a high watermark for both
This
of us.
is about the grass.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Council members, please vote electronically on the closed motion. We are in closed session. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.